this is Rabbit's blog, and welcome to my requested videos week. Today's requested video was requested to me by Stubbs Wolf, and they ask, what are your top 5 favorite X-Men storylines? Now, I have managed to read a lot of X-Men storylines since 2011, because 2011 was when I first started reading the X-Men comics, despite the fact that I've been watching the animated series since the 90s. But over that time, I managed to read many X-Men storylines that I've really enjoyed. And I'm doing a top 5 video because so far I only read like maybe 5 out of or 6 out of so many storylines of the X-Men, and there's still a lot of X-Men storylines I haven't read. So this video is sort of like a part 1 and to my top favorite X-Men storylines, and part 2 is probably going to be my top 10, part 3 my top 15, part 4 my top 20, and so on and so forth. Depending how long the X-Men franchise runs. But for today's video, I'm going to do my top 5 favorite X-Men storylines, and I'm going to start with number 5. So number 5 is Proteus by Chris Claremont, artwork by John Byrne. This story was really interesting to me because it was the first appearance of Proteus himself and how he managed to torture the X-Men, especially Wolverine. I remember the scene where he mind raped Wolverine, and Wolverine became so frightened of Proteus's power, and that was like the first time I seen Wolverine actually be scared of a villain who was tougher than the X-Men. So this storyline was really memorable for that reason, that you have Wolverine who's so tough, and then you have a villain who was able to get into his mind and make him really afraid to face him. And so, also, I just found Proteus to be a really interesting villain because he's able to warp reality, and it was just rare to see an X-Men villain to do such a thing to the X-Men themselves. So, I would definitely recommend Proteus for anybody who wants to read an X-Men storyline. It's a really great story. Number 4 is Astonishing X-Men Gifted and Astonishing X-Men Unstoppable by Joss Whedon, artwork by John Cassidy. Now, anybody who's watched my previous videos in dealing with Astonishing X-Men knows that I love this series to death. I love what Joss Whedon's has done with Astonishing X-Men. Actually, I love all of Joss Whedon's work, mostly because he's a really great writer and a great director and stuff like that. So when I heard that he was working on Astonishing X-Men, I got really excited, and I started reading Astonishing X-Men, and actually, there was 4 volumes in this run. The first one was Gifted, second was Dangerous, third was Torn, and fourth was Unstoppable. But of those 4 volumes I've named out, probably my favorites was Gifted and Unstoppable. I really love Gifted because I love what Joss Whedon has done to bring the X-Men to a more modern day world, apart from how they started off in the 80s. These are like the same X-Men characters from the 80s, but they're more planted in a more modern day society, in this case the early 2000s, and I really like the way that Joss Whedon progressed the characters into a more modern day setting as he started Gifted. Another reason I really like Gifted was the fact that he brought back Colossus back from the dead, because before this there was a story arc called The Legacy Virus, where Colossus killed himself trying to save all the mutants around the world. And it was just great to see Colossus again, because he was just one of my most favorite X-Men characters. And seeing Colossus just come back from the dead and Gifted was just a really fun experience for me. I also like Unstoppable, which was the final story arc for Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men, because it was so emotional and so exciting at the same time. I like the X-Men's battle in the Break world. I like the way they expanded more on Colossus and Shadowcat's relationship with each other, which was really heartwarming in this run. So this was definitely Unstoppable was a great story arc, or great finale for Astonishing X-Men, and I would definitely recommend try out all of Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. It's a fantastic series overall. Number 3 is God Loves, Man Kills by Chris Claremont, artwork by Brett Anderson. Now, this was probably the most controversial story for the X-Men, as it was pretty much handled without the decisions of the comic industry. You know how the comic industry at the time would say, you can't have that much violence or that much cursing in a comic book. And I would say God Loves, Man Kills got away from that, and they were able to explore subjects that was way more intense than what you would normally see in any other comic book. I like how they explore racism in a more deeper context than they usually do with the X-Men franchise. And I like how they try to promote the message about how religion can be used for hatred in the form of William Stryker, who tried to use his religion to kill all the mutants around the world. And I think it just made him into a really impressive villain because he's well loved by the public, but he does horrible things, and it's just a really effective story and showing a villain who's able to do such a thing, like trick the public into thinking that he or she is like a great person when they're doing evil things underneath. So I would definitely recommend God Loves Man Kills from X-Men storyline. Number 2 is Days of Future Past by Chris Claremont, artwork by John Byrne. Um, I really love Days of Future Past because it really introduced Kitty Pryde into the X-Men, and how it shows how she's able to prove herself as a real X-Men character. Like, I love the story arc about how her future self, Kate Pryde, tries to come from the bad future with the Sentinels killed off all the mutants, and she has to go to the past to prevent Senator Robert Kelly from being assassinated, and she has to go through Kitty's mind to do just that. And I thought it was a really interesting storyline, and it really introduced the time traveling aspects of the X-Men franchise. And so, I love Days of Future Past for that reason. I also like the way they introduced Kitty Pryde to the X-Men, and it's just a great story I highly recommend for any X-Men fan. And my number one favorite X-Men story is The Dark Phoenix Saga by Chris Claremont, artwork by John Byrne. And this was pretty much the story that really defined the X-Men as characters themselves, or really defined the X-Men from the comic book industry, because it shows Jean Grey first becoming the Dark Phoenix. It shows how the other X-Men were hesitant about defeating Jean Grey because, they've been good friends with her. I like the relationship between her and Cyclops, and how Cyclops didn't want to hurt Jean Grey because of what she has become. It's just a great and emotional story that I think any X-Men fan should really check out. It's been pretty much it's highly praised for being one of the best X-Men stories ever, and I do agree with that. It did really set up the popularity for the X-Men, and I just really enjoyed the story for that reason. And those are pretty much my top 5 favorite storylines from the X-Men so far. And again, this is part 1 because I haven't read all the X-Men storylines, and here are the X-Men storylines that I haven't read, and they are Age of Apocalypse, Avengers vs. X-Men, Civil War, Curse of the Mutants, Deadly Genesis, Divided We Stand, Endangered Species, Fall of the Mutants, Fatal Attractions, Here Comes Tomorrow, House of M, Inferno, Manifest Destiny, Messiah Complex, Mutant Genesis, Nation X, The Onslaught Saga, Operation Zero Tolerance, Phalanx Covenant, The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, Second Coming, Utopia, Executioner's Song, and Extinction Agenda. That is a lot of stories I have to get through. So once I read those stories, I'll probably do my top 10 list later on. But so far, the stories I mentioned in this video, those are my top 5 favorite X-Men stories. And I hope you check out all these stories out. So what are your top 5 favorite X-Men storylines? And please feel free to comment below. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter so I can keep you updated on any new videos that I post up. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Rabbit Vlog, and I'll see you later.